Alright, so I wanted to quickly touch on the Enoch Burke situation today. The reason that I want to talk about Burke is because he's been arrested yet again, and currently he's all over the radio and the news, etc. So, for those of you unfamiliar with Burke and his situation, he's basically a teacher who refused to refer to one of his students with the they-them pronoun, and this led to a confrontation with the school's principal, and he was put on paid administrative leave. Now, after this, the school sought a high court injunction, and Burke was basically ordered not to enter the school premises while he was suspended. Now, Burke, however, has refused to accept this order, and he kept turning up to the school, so since then, he's ended up being arrested several times, he's appeared in court several times, and he's done a couple of stints in prison. Now, this situation has divided opinions across Ireland, and his supporters are basically saying that he's standing up for religious freedom, and that he's being punished by the state for refusing gender ideology. Whereas his detractors are saying that the issue isn't pronouns, it's him refusing to obey court orders. Now, my take on this whole situation is that both his detractors and his supporters have valid points. On one hand, I agree that teachers should be in school to teach their students, and that they shouldn't be forced to engage in silly nonsense such as calling children theys and thems. I mean, the job should be about teaching, not promoting gender ideology. I also respect Burke for standing up for his beliefs, especially considering the amount of mockery that he's been subjected to. And I don't care what side of the fence you're on, there's no denying that the man has balls. And I can guarantee that a lot of the people who are mocking him will not have the courage to face the same type of public scrutiny that he has over the past couple of years. So I do respect the man's conviction. Now, on the flip side, his detractors are absolutely right when they say that he's being in prison not for refusing gender ideology, but rather for refusing the court's orders. At the end of the day, nobody is forcing him to keep going back to the school. And I get that it was an act of protest and an act of defiance, but when his supporters say that he's being arrested for refusing gender ideology, that's just disingenuous. And while I ultimately agree with Burke's stance against gender ideology being pushed in schools, and I do respect his conviction, I can't help but think that the whole situation has become a bit of a circus with no real endgame at this stage. I mean, just the other week his sister and his mother were jailed for contempt of court after they started shouting and roaring in the middle of court proceedings. And I get that they were sticking up for their family member, but how exactly do they think that that is going to help his case? That just comes across as idiotic and impulsive to me. I think it's such a daft thing to do, but I digress. And I think at this stage, the best thing that Enoch could do is just accept the fact that he's fighting a battle that he's never going to win. I mean, is he going to just keep turning up to the school and getting rearrested and potentially waste years of his life in prison over this? What's the point when he could be doing something more productive? So, ultimately, the Irish state are never going to side with him. And we all know that they love to push agendas and virtue signal, and one of the agendas that they like to push is gender ideology, so there's that. But to be fair, there's also the way that he and his family have handled this situation. They've been bullish and at times they've been quite distasteful. That example of his mother and his sister shouting and roaring in the middle of court. I mean, if I was in a situation like that and my mother and sister started acting like that, I'd be enraged. I'd be furious with them. So they certainly haven't helped his case. I think that he's made his point. He's shown himself to be a very brave man and a very stubborn man. But at this stage, I think that he's flogging a dead horse, and it really isn't worth wasting his life away over what has turned into a political soap opera. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.